We again want to welcome you to the Exploring Changes in the HR Function in Higher Educational Institutions in Response to a Pandemic session. I will now turn it over to our presenter.
Hi, hello everyone. Thank you so much for joining today and allowing me to share my proposal. My name is Naterena Parham-Cofield, and the title of my proposal, which was just said, is Exploring Changes in the HR Function in Higher Educational Institutions in Response to a Pandemic. So let's just take a second to reflect back to the year 2020. On March 13th, the former US President Donald Trump declared a nationwide state of emergency, which was immediately followed by states enforcing social distancing efforts to stop the spread of COVID-19 by shutting down restaurants, bars, cruise ships, and schools. My proposal focuses on the impact of enforcing the school closures on traditional higher education institutions that needed to shift employees to working from home quickly and transition face-to-face classes to remote platforms. As a director of administration with responsibilities as a human resource manager, I lived through this phenomenon, and I witnessed firsthand how my role changed overnight as a response to the school closures. From that point on, the daily work of human resource managers and other HR personnel has changed. This proposal will explore those changes through a qualitative, descriptive, multiple case study approach. Next slide. Pandemics are not new. However, the COVID-19 pandemic is the most recent phenomenon that caused major disruption and change to take place at the college and university level. There has been much research on the impact of the pandemic from a teacher, faculty, and student perspective in higher ed. However, there is scant research that is available that focuses on the role of the human resource management and how the HR function was impacted or changed to support the employee's performance and employees' well-being in higher ed. So while the employees transition to working remotely and faculty and students move to virtual classrooms, the human resource professionals were faced with the reality that all eyes were on them to navigate this unknown territory. So pandemics have reshaped societies and paved the way for advances in sciences, political systems, technology, medicine, and the economy. Previous and current pandemics may have reshaped the HR function in higher ed. It may have involved managing change related to employee performance and employee well-being. So therefore, in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, the social problem is HR leaders in higher education were forced to manage change into the unknown unknowns while developing sense-making to help manage risks to employees' performance and their well-being. And although researchers have investigated this issue to a certain extent, the topic has not been explored through a qualitative lens and through an examination of Kotter's 8-step change management model. The specific problem, therefore, is the research has not explored how the HR function changes due to a pandemic in different types of higher educational institution and how managing it contributes to the employee's performance and the employee's well-being. Next slide, please. Although COVID-19 is continuing to cause disruption in 2022, this study will focus primarily on the first few days, weeks, and months when Human Resources Department was contacted to shut down schools and move everyone to a virtual environment. This study will also explore how the HR function changed through interview questions with the human resource personnel that worked through the beginning of the pandemic. So the purpose of this proposed qualitative descriptive multiple case study is to explore how the HR function changed due to the COVID-19 pandemic at different types of higher education institution and how managing it contributes to the employee's performance and employees' well-being. So the overarching research question is, how has the HR function changed in higher educational institutions due to a pandemic? And the sub-question 1 is, how has HR changed as a result of COVID-19 to support employees' performance? And the sub-question 2 is, how has HR changed as a result of COVID-19 to support employees' well-being? This study is significant in that, first, from a performance point of view, my observations and collection of data could reveal how HR in higher ed prepared prior to a pandemic, reacted during a pandemic, and planned after the pandemic. Second, it could also reveal the collection of strategies to help other schools plan in the future. Third, from a well-being perspective, it may help schools remember the support roles within higher ed that are often overlooked, such as HR, and how they can support them moving forward or going forward. Lastly, it may demonstrate Kotter's 8 steps of change management framework for managing change in HR in higher ed during a pandemic, which has not yet been shown in the literature. The framework that grounds this study is John P. Kotter's 8-step change management model. Kotter's 8-step model has been used for decades for managing organizational changes. The 8-step framework can offer insight on how the human resource function changed for each step during the COVID-19 pandemic. The 8 steps include: 1, establishing a sense of urgency; 2, creating the guiding coalition; 3, developing a vision and strategy; 4, communicating the change vision; 5, empowering broad-based action; 6, generating short-term wins; 7, consolidating gains and producing more change; and 8, anchoring new approaches in the culture. Again, Kotter's 8-step framework will be used as a lens and a guide to understanding if sudden changes related to the pandemic or severe workplace disruption align with each of the 8 steps. Next slide, please. The relevant scholars for my proposal, first is John P. Kotter and his 8-step change management model. In his book, Leading Change, Kotter describes the path to overcoming resistance to change is having a multi-step process driven by competent leadership, which creates conditions that support transformation through motivation and power. The second scholar is Niffin and other researchers who published an article titled COVID-19 in the Workplace: Implications, Issues, and Insights for Future Research and Action. Niffin's review of the literature called for future research on the emergent changes for workers due to social distancing with limited to no social connections, with an informed action by human resource managers to acknowledge mental health risks due to the pandemic and implement policies and interventions to support employees' well-being. Therefore, the call for exploring the pandemic's impact on employees and action taken by human resource managers to mitigate employees' performance and employees' well-being is the foundation of the current study. Next slide. The research design of this study is qualitative, descriptive, multiple case study, which is appropriate for exploring how the HR function changed through interview questions in different types of higher education institutions in real world contexts. The qualitative approach is often the the first option to consider when there is a new phenomenon and when little research has been conducted on a specific topic, such as the COVID-19 pandemic. A case study is appropriate for investigating the current contemporary phenomenon within its actual environment or context, especially being that there's boundaries between the context and the phenomenon that are really unclear. For the data analysis, I will analyze the data using Robert Ying's 5-step data analysis process through the lens of Kotter's 8-step change management model. The 5 steps of data analysis will include compiling the data, dissembling it, reassembling it, interpreting it, and then concluding. Of course, I may go back and forth between the 5 phases several times before I reach a conclusion. And the chosen computer assistant qualitative software, data analysis software that I will use is Navivo, which will allow me to take that unstructured data and organize it following the 5 steps, and then also code it, label it, map it, and then report the data with visual presentation. The population in this study is HR personnel in higher education in the United States. The HR personnel can range from chief officers, supervisors, seniors, entry to mid-level personnel, and coordinators. The type of higher education institutions may include a 4-year college university, junior or community college, career colleges, religiously affiliated colleges, and online colleges and universities. The participant selection logic will include full-time HR employees at any level that worked a minimum of 6 months prior to the COVID pandemic, 19, and during the 2021 year of the pandemic. And also there will be a limit of 2 interviewees from from the same school. So the study significance to positive social change can contribute to the field of human resource management as a resource for future pandemics by revealing possible benefits of Kotter's 8-step framework as a continuity plan for the HR practice to manage emergent changes in the HR function while positively supporting employees' performance and employees' well-being. And that actually concludes my proposal presentation. And the next slide is my references. And now we can open up for questions.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Please enter your questions into the chat for us, and we will ask those to the presenter. Awesome. I see we have a couple of questions here. So the first question that we have here is, what are you most looking forward to as you embark on this process?
Well, that's a good question. I'm really looking forward on understanding how the HR function changed within different schools. So I know what I've seen and experienced here, but let's say a school or a college that is already online. Did anything change for them to manage that shift? Did everything in the HR function stay exactly the same because they're already online and they didn't really have to adjust? They were on top of everything compared to schools that are brick and mortar and they had to shift. So I guess I'm just curious on what the HR part of the schools had to do in order to manage that change. So I'm really excited about learning what that is. I hope that answered the question.
It did. I'm sure it did. Awesome. Then the next question that we have is, what is one bit of advice you would give to Walden students who are approaching this stage of their program?
Oh, okay, so I guess that's a broad question for me. This is, I'm sorry, say the question again, because I want to make sure I heard it right.
Sure. What is one bit of advice you would give to Walden students who are approaching this stage of their program?
You know what I would want to say? one, don't give up. Two, even if you get hundreds of revisions, keep going. Two, another thing I would say, get support from people, which I've done, and you know, Walden is actually great, but sometimes you need additional support. Get that additional support if you have it. Outside of Walden, I've had other people to help support me through, and just keep going, because everyone's there to just support us and get us through it, because there will be times where the self-doubt will take over. For me to even do this presentation today, this is my practice run for my oral presentation because of my nerves. So again, you see me just keep pushing forward through it and having a great support system. So that's what I would give any student and any doctoral program anywhere, is make sure you have a great support system.
Excellent. Well, you are doing an excellent job today, so I'm sure your upcoming defense will be no problem.
Thank you.
Our next question is, do you have any hypothesis for the study?
Well, this is a qualitative study, so they have hypothesis is usually catered towards quantitative. This is qualitative. So my questions, my overarching question is catered to a qualitative.
Wonderful. I'll check just one more time to see if we have any additional questions, but I believe you have answered them all. Do you have any additional final remarks you would like to share with us?
No, thank you all for attending and giving me this opportunity to share my study. I do appreciate it. That's all I have. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Once again, we appreciate you sharing your experiences with us today.